It is a tough night. It really is a tough night for us, Parker, as we are without our man that runs the board, Dominic Stern, and our comedian, Mr. Pat Fortuna. So it's just Parker and I tonight. Parker, how you doing, bud?
Doing pretty good, but yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, that's a lot of obstacles to overcome for this group. I mean, it's like a team getting hit with COVID and not having coaching staff members, players, you name it. And I don't know if we were going to do NBA or NFL to start, but that seems like a good segue for Thursday Night Football, which is going to be a really good matchup between the Cardinals and the Packers because Devontae Adams, star receiver, is on that COVID list, and he is vaccinated, so that does help. That helps his odds of getting those negative confirmations to let him play, but it's a short week for it on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, and I want to start off in the NFL just because of that topic and how we segued into it. You're probably not going to see Devontae Adams.
Most likely not. It would take a lot.
And then you're also not going to have the Packers defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So this game just got a lot more interesting. And I want to ask you, going into this Thursday night game, it's a heck of a matchup. Who do you think is going to have to step up in the receiving game if Adams is unable to go? Like you said, he's vaccinated, so there is a shot, but it's unlikely. So who do you think is going to be the guy to step up in the receiving game for Aaron Rodgers?
Well, that's the interesting thing because he is such a good receiver. I mean, he's established himself as one of those top three guys. I feel like you ask just about anybody, their list is going to have Devontae Adams. We saw earlier in the season when he took that big hit and had that minor – it wasn't a concussion, but like it knocked out. They had to bring him to the tent for concussion protocol. We saw the offense kind of stall against the 49ers. That was an interesting look. It was fortunate for them. It wasn't very long, but it was still a look without him being on the field because we know how good he is. So I would say there's guys like Allen Lazard that hasn't really broken out, established themselves in a bigger way, have a bigger role. And other guys, Valdez-Scantling, they have a couple guys, and those are the two that come to mind for me. I just don't know because with this team, it's not like they rely heavily on him. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback after all. He can give anybody the ball whenever he wants because he is Aaron Rodgers and he's that good.
Exactly.
But Devontae Adams, though, I mean, that's his guy. I mean, those two are one of the best receiver-quarterback duos we've seen in quite some time. So it's going to be a big loss, especially if he's most likely not going to play, which it seems that way. But I think that those are the two names that come to mind.
Hear me out. Hear me out when I say this. This is Randall Cobb's game.
You know what? I actually really like that. I think he should have came to my mind, too. That's a really good one.
I think it is Randall Cobb's game. And then I'm also thinking we're going to see a little bit more Robert Tonyan in it as well.
Yeah, because Robert Tonyan, he did come to mind too. I didn't state his name, but I really have to say the Randall Cobb one's good. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, with all the stuff that was going on this offseason where him and the front office were just at each other's throats, one of the things he mentioned is how there's a list of guys that they got rid of that he didn't want them to get rid of. Randall was one of them. He said, I want him back. And, of course, they met his demands because he's Aaron Rodgers, like you just said. So that can't be overstated, of course. So he has a lot of power. And sure enough, he got his boy Randall Cobb. And those two are really good. I mean, like the production that they had for the longest time when he was over there in Green Bay was special. Yeah,
those were the good old days.
Those were the two that had a lot of chemistry.
Yeah.
So I could see a huge game from Randall Cobb. I mean, not to make this about fantasy, but I'm sure in a lot of leagues he's not picked up. So that's a really good waiver wire guy right there.
I'm about to go make some waiver wire claims for Randall Cobb this week.
Yeah, with all my injuries, I've kind of given up on fantasy. But for those of you that have a good season going, that's a good guy to pick up.
Parker, also in the NFL, I know that our teams have just fallen apart.
Yeah,
I want to start off with you and the Broncos. Before you get into your rant, which I want you to go into, is there any way that we see Drew Lock take over as a starter?
It's the way I look at it is I would like that to happen because while Teddy sort of won me over those first 3 weeks, I knew that it was against bad opponents, but like he was still looking good, so I was going to support him. Everybody was going crazy, like, so now you're a Teddy guy, you know? I'm like, well, he's my starting quarterback. I should be, you know? But I think that it would be good to see Drew get some snaps. He came in when Teddy got injured versus the Ravens, and it didn't look pretty. The offensive line just completely imploded around him. There was nothing he could have done, and it wasn't a fair evaluation of what Drew Lock can or cannot be. So I would like to see him at some point. The only reason why I'm hesitant is because the way I look at it is the team says Teddy's the guy. Look, I get it. If that's your guy, you stick with it. But even going into Thursday Night Football against the Browns, Teddy was visibly injured, it appeared. I mean, maybe I'm reading it wrong. I'm not a body language expert, but just seeing him out on the field in warmups, it didn't look great. He definitely wasn't at 100%. And sure enough, Vic Fangio really hammered in on the nail and said that this is the guy that we're going to play. We're not even thinking about Drew right now. That's not on, our minds. And I would like for it to be, it's not necessarily a knock on Teddy because, things just aren't going well. There's a lot of injuries. So it doesn't really matter whether you have Teddy or Drew. I just think that Drew has more home run potential. He's got a cannon for an arm. I think it's a more exciting person to have out there in a struggling season by the team. So I personally would like to see it.
What about the defense, Parker? I know that after Thursday night's game, you voiced a lot of displeasure with Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, Kyle Fuller. I mean, it wasn't even so much that Browns game. It was really more the week before and just the weeks leading up throughout the season because this was a guy that we got from the Bears on a one-year deal. I mean, he was so elite for the Chicago defenses. I thought that he was going to be transcendent with us. I thought that him uniting with Vic Fangio again was going to do wonders. His secondary on paper looked like it was going to be the league's best. Surely that hasn't been the case. There's plenty of other secondaries that I could name that are better. So it's just been really disappointing. So I know that he's the one name that's out there as guys they're looking to explore trades for. And the problem is they wouldn't get much for him. But the way I look at it is if you can get some sort of mid-level pick or back-end pick, probably only going to get like a 6th-round pick for him at best, you probably just take it, depending on where you're at the trade deadline at that point in the year, depending on how the team looks, depending on what the record is. I think it's something you do because that's a guy that's been disappointing. But, I mean, it's not just him. The whole defense has been disappointing. There's been some injuries. Our linebacking core is beyond depleted. Unless you're a fan of the team and are keeping up with the injuries like me, you really can't begin to understand just how bad it is. I mean, we're going to like 6th and 7th string guys. Like, it's unheard of. Guys from the practice squad, watch out because your number might be called one of these days because Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell, those guys are out for the year with the same injury, torn pec. It's just been killer. So
hold on, Kenny Young.
Yeah, we did. We acquired Kenny Young. That's true. And that's the thing. That's another thing to mention because the Broncos are still, they're trying to be buyers. They're trying to make the most with this team. They still think there's something there. And I did at one point think there was too, but things are just not going very well. It's 4 straight losses. The team looks so bad on Thursday night against Cleveland. And, we know how good that offensive line is for the Browns. Their run game is dominant, but they didn't have Nick Chubb. They didn't have Kareem Hunt. Those are their 2 guys that they go back and forth. They're change of pace backs. And to not have to go up against those guys was a blessing, only for Ernest Johnson out of nowhere to rush for over 100 yards on us. And, the run defense just looks so bad without Alexander Johnson. His injury was so prevalent out there. Not having him there was the difference maker. He's been one of the best run-stopping linebackers that the league has to offer. So it was a really ugly game top to bottom.
Parker, is there anything else that you want to voice about the Broncos so far? As they've lost 4 in a row.
The only thing I guess I could say is I've never been more fooled by a Broncos team. I literally, there's no other way to go about it. I felt pretty good about this team. I never held them in some high regard where it's all right, this is a Super Bowl contending top 3 team in the AFC. I never once thought that. And even after the 3-0 start, I never thought that. But I did think that this was a good team. They were going to be maybe a 6th or a 7th seed. And we'll just have them roll the dice in the playoffs against one of those top seeded teams and see how they do. Who knows? Crazy stuff happens all the time in the NFL. But that was not the case. They look so good on paper. So I look back at it and I defend how I viewed this team. I think a lot of people viewed them the same way. I know you and Dom thought they'd be pretty good too. And that just hasn't been the case. So I really do feel fooled because I don't think I've ever been more wrong about a Broncos team than I have been this year with how poorly the season's gone.
Yeah, I thought this Broncos team was going to be a wild card team. I thought that with that defense, and then I think the offense could still put some points on the board. I thought this team was going to be up there and be a playoff contender. I know that I did not want to buy into them after those first 3 weeks. They had looked good. They had been dominating those games. So, yeah, you can take some stock into that. But at the same time, you can't really go full buy-in mode until they beat a team that had a win up to date when you face them.
Yeah.
So now everyone's favorite time. Ryan's Chiefs rant of the week.
Depends who you ask.
Let me just say this. Yesterday was pitiful, embarrassing, and horrible. At half, the Chiefs were down 27-0. They lost 27-3. I'm going to say the two good things that came from this game. One, for the second straight week, the Chiefs defense held their opponent scoreless in the second half. Whoopee! The second good thing is Nick Bolton. That man has 55 tackles this season, leading all rookies. He had 15 yesterday, and he leads the entire NFL in tackles for loss. So that's the one bright spot on that defense that I saw. So I don't even know where to begin, but I think I'm going to start with this defense. I am so ready for the Chiefs to just tear down this defense. Honestly, there's 6 players that I for sure would want on this defense next year. Nick Bolton, who has been terrific as a rookie this year. Willie Gay, because he's still developing. He's still going to be a top linebacker for them. L'Jarius Sneed, Rashad Fenton, Tyrann Mathieu, and Juan Thornhill. Everyone else can go.
Just ship them off.
Frank Clark, a special teams player for the Chiefs, Marcus Kemp, has the same amount of solo tackles as Frank Clark this season. Parker, you want to guess that number?
Give me like a ballpark. Like, give me like a, something to something that I can guess between.
1 to 10.
Because I was thinking maybe there's a chance you're going to say that. I'm going to say 7.
Close. 6. 6 tackles from Frank Clark this year.
That's really bad.
The man has the highest cap hit out of any defensive player in the NFL this year.
My goodness.
He has been such a letdown. And honestly, once the season ends, he and his Uzi can go wherever he wants because the Chiefs are going to cut him and save $13 million. At this point, trade Chris Jones. And you know how much I love Chris Jones.
Yeah, that's what surprises me the most about that.
And I was so high on them giving him that contract to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
But this man does not care. Multiple times yesterday, he just gave up on plays.
Yeah,
he just doesn't care. And it's because he finally has that money he wanted. And yet, you see Joe Thuney out there who broke his hand against the Bills, puts a club on it, and is playing through it. Chris Jones has a bruise on his wrist and misses 2 or 3 games. Like, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. This is your rant, so I'll let you keep going. But I was just going to jump in to say,
no, go right ahead.
There was a time where, outside of maybe Aaron Donald and maybe like Fletcher Cox, like he was the best, the next best interior defensive lineman not that long ago. I mean, he was up there.
Yeah.
He put up numbers that would put him in that category.
Yeah,
so
he was the second best.
It is pretty crazy to see that. But, we do see that sometimes guys get the big bucks. You just don't see the same level of production. That's why so many guys in contract years have the best years of their careers because there's something on the line. Exactly. There's money to be made.
Yes, exactly.
So these guys have extra emphasis. I mean, every guy has motivation. They want to go out there. They want to be the best. You name it. But there are dollar figures out there. That's another good guy. There's tons of them. I mean, countless. Like they're typically going to play a little bit better. Garrett Bowles, another guy. Putting into Denver perspective. Like this is a guy that was terrible. We declined his 5th-year option, and that forced him to have to be better his 4th year. And sure enough, he was one of the top left tackles in the league out of the blue. I mean, I literally can't begin to explain how much of a mystery it was. There was nothing that indicated that was going to happen.
But I also don't think it's just that he's got paid. The fact that this experiment with moving him outside with the signing of Jared Reed, first off, let me give a couple solutions to what the Chiefs defense should do. Get Daniel Sorensen off the field for good. Put Armani Watts out there. Keep Ben Beeman off the field. Put Dorian O'Daniel out there. Get Jared Reed off the field. Put Chris Jones back at defensive tackle. Also, get Frank Clark off the field. Put Mike Dana at edge rusher, which he has looked really good. And you know what? Give Tershawn Wharton a chance on the outside. He is
since being a UDFA last year, he's been really good. So those are my fixes for the defense. Now let's go over to the offense. I remember saying going into this year, this offensive line has the potential to be top 5.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have agreed with that. Yeah.
And the interior part of the line with Tooney at left guard, Creed Humphrey at center, and Trey Smith at right guard has been terrific. The tackles have been abysmal. Lucas Niang is not even starting at right tackle anymore. It's Mike Remmers, and he's looked bad. But the biggest disappointment's been Orlando Brown. They traded a first-round pick for him. And I know he was moving from right tackle to left tackle, but here's the thing. He's a run-blocking tackle. And that's not the Chiefs' offense. The Chiefs are a pass-first offense, and he doesn't cater well to Mahomes. So something has got to change there. Also, finally, Patrick Mahomes came out yesterday in the press conference and said, I am pressing too much. Well, dude, no dip. It is so obvious. The reason he is turning the ball over so much is because he is trying to do too much because his defense doesn't help. He has all that pressure. Well, I don't get points up on the board here. This game could be over because our defense can't get a stop.
Yeah, I mean, that is something with Patrick Mahomes because there's no denying the incredible ability he has. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history already. Obviously, he's got to put up the numbers to fulfill that, end of the bargain and be in that list. But, from an arm talent perspective, from what he's done up until this point in his career compared to other guys in their career, I mean, he is that guy. But the big thing is, sometimes I do think he believes he can do stuff that even he can't do. He can't even wrap his head around that. And he's trying to make something out of plays. And we say this a lot, especially with maybe lower levels of football where guys are just trying to be the hero. They're trying to do too much. And I think we're seeing that a lot this year. And there's been times in the past couple seasons where he's gotten away with it, whether it's, rolling out of the pocket, dodging a couple guys, throwing it up to Tyreek. It works every once in a while, but when it doesn't work, it looks really bad. And those are the kind of things where he kind of has to know his own limits because while he has the least limits of any other quarterback on the field, there still are limits at the end of the day that he has to be aware of.
I agree, and he's just trying to do too much. He's got to take a step back. And then he gets hurt yesterday, took a couple knees to the head. He cleared concussion protocol, which was shocking to me. But I just think that when you're looking at this offense, first off, they signed Josh Gordon and they don't use him. I'm so tired of Mecole Hardman fumbling the football. So you know what? Put Gordon in for Hardman, put Pringle in for Robinson. And there's your receivers along with Hill and Kelsey. So that's where my suggestions go on offense. Lastly, there's one firing that needs to happen. Get Steve Spagnuolo out of Kansas City. He has refused to make those adjustments that would get this defense remotely near maybe a bottom half unit. It's that bad. It's the worst defense in football. And if he's not going to make those adjustments, he's got to get out and they've got to fire him. Lastly, Andy Reid, I love you, but here's the thing. Give the play calling to Eric Bieniemy. It's ridiculous. Why are you running the football on 2nd down and 10? What is that?
It is a little strange because, for some team, I'm not a guy that would want to do that no matter who my quarterback is. But when you do have Mahomes, while he does make some mistakes here and there, he still is, maybe not this. He's not playing like season, but you can still argue he is still the best quarterback in football. So taking the ball out of his hands just doesn't make sense.
And he's done it multiple times. The Ravens game, he took the ball out of Mahomes' hands, and look what happens. A fumble, the Chiefs lose the game. Here's the thing. They've got to make those adjustments. This Chiefs team can go on a run and win 6, 7 games in a row. There's nothing doubting that. But as of right now, I don't see this team being a playoff team unless they make those adjustments. So a lot of work needs to be done. But yeah, there's my rant for the Chiefs. So let's move on. And Parker, since we got a lot of NBA to talk about, let's do our pick'ems. All right?
Let's do it.
So we mentioned the Thursday night game. Who are you taking, Parker?
So that was the thing. I mean, these are two really good teams because the way I looked at it is the Cardinals are the lone undefeated team at 7-0, And then you have on the other end the Packers, who are a team that started off the season horrendously. Like they got blown out 38-3 against the Saints. It was ugly, but they bounced back and won 6 straight. So I viewed them extremely evenly as far as these two NFC teams go. They both won their last 6 games, the only exception being the Cardinals winning 1 extra week 1, that is. So I was originally going to go with the Packers, and I had a gut feeling that at some point the Cardinals can only play so well for so long. They've been top 5 in both offense and defense. That's a really difficult thing to do week in, week out. Typically, teams, no matter how good you are going to slip up every once in a while. And I thought that this was going to be that. But because of Davante Adams, who we mentioned earlier, I'm going to side with the Cardinals. That takes off so much pressure on that defense, who's been balling out as it is. That secondary has been a lot better than I think a lot of people would have expected. So I will stick with the Cardinals on this one. But, if for some reason, somehow, he does clear it, if he does get those negative tests back to back, I'll probably change my pick. But as of right now, knowing the information we know, it's the Cardinals for me.
As of right now, I'm going to agree with you and go with the Cardinals due to the potential no game performance from Davante Adams, knowing that he's on the COVID list. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals as of right now. But I want to update everyone on our standings.
Yeah, because the Saints just won as well, 13-10 in a very ugly game in Seattle.
All right. In last place is Mr. Patrick Fortuna with a 47-44 record.
He's almost below 500. It's really close. Oof.
Third place is still Dom, even though he did gain a couple games on me this week.
He did mention
at 58-33. I'm in second at 60-31, and Parker is still on a roll at 64-27. All right, Parker, since Pat did not give us picks, do we think he's going with Green Bay or Arizona?
Oh yeah, we got to keep the tradition.
Yeah.
Pat's not here. So I think I'm trying to think because with his Patriots, for these two teams, has there been any issues amongst them? I don't think so. I feel like he'd say something like, I like birds or something, so I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I don't know. This one's more difficult.
Well, here's the thing.
Because the other week, we got all of them.
I'm going to take the Packers because he loves cheese.
Oh, you're so right. Oh, my
I'm
God.
Packers because that man loves cheese.
I was so wrong. Yeah, we're hammering the Packers for him. Absolutely.
All right, next game, Carolina and Atlanta.
Are we still on Pat or for me?
We're going to go with you first. We'll do Pat last.
Okay, we'll do him last. But yeah, no, foolish decision on the last one. I'm going to go – did you say the Panthers-Falcons game?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to go with the Falcons. The Panthers' offense just looks so bad, and I love that defense. What they're doing is really good. They're a young defense, but they're playing at a higher level than I thought they would. I figured where they are now would be next year, but they're already there, so good for them. But, well, I'm not a huge Falcons guy. I don't love what they do. I think they win this game at home.
I'm going to take Atlanta. The play from Sam Darnold has not looked good.
Yeah,
he's fallen off a cliff. And I think that Atlanta, Matt Ryan is playing really well. He's being overshadowed by other quarterback play. He's really becoming underrated with how he's been playing this year. Parker, who do we give Pat to?
I was like, as you were describing why you're picking the Falcons, I was looking at this, and this is another game where I can't think of a connection.
Yeah, this one's tough.
Maybe we'll just go Panthers because I feel like sometimes he just picks the opposite of what we do.
Also, he hates Atlanta, even though the Patriots came back.
Okay, yeah, I would say Panthers. I feel a little bit better about that.
Okay, Pat's nightmare matchup: Miami and Buffalo up next.
So I know what he'll pick. It's gonna be the opposite of me because I'm gonna pick the Bills. They look really good. They're 4-2, so they already have 2 losses on the year. But when they win, they look so good. They're at home. That's a difficult place to play in Buffalo. And I trust Josh Allen more than I do Tua. Tua's made some really bad mistakes. And it could be games where he plays fine, but then he just has that one really bad turnover. So Bills for me, but I do think Pat's going to go with
Pat is going to take the Dolphins. He's always picking against the Bills.
Not a big Bills Mafia fan over there.
Yeah, he's going to go with the Dolphins. I'm going to go with the Bills. This Dolphins team has just been such a letdown this year, and I just don't see them turning around against this Buffalo team who has a great offense and a great defense.
Yeah, it's a division game, but I don't see it being very close.
Next up, Niners, Bears.
This is an ugly one. The Bears were 3-2 not very long ago. They've lost back-to-back. Now
Yes.
they're 3-4.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with the Niners, and you know how I feel about this team. I don't think they're legit. I don't think they're very good. They're 2-4 for reasons. You know, there's tons of them that I could name, but I'm gonna go with the Niners here because I just don't know. Justin Fields' quarterback play has been really, really just suspect so far. That offensive line's not doing him any favors. So I'm gonna say the Niners defense in a really gritty game in Chicago gets it done.
Give me the Bears in this one. I trust that defense more than the Niners defense, and I think that this Niners offense is just nowhere close to really doing much.
Mhm.
And I know that offensive line for Chicago is just atrocious, but I have that feeling that the Bears are going to be able to make the stops and get into the end zone when they really need to. So I'm going to take the Bears in this one.
I feel like he's also going to pick the Bears.
Yeah, Pat's going to be with us.
It's not anything against the Niners. I just feel like he's going to
Yeah.
pick the Bears.
Next up, a very interesting game here in Cleveland
Yeah.
as the Browns host the Steelers. And the Steelers are coming off their bye, but also the Browns are so injured. Who do you have in this one, Parker?
I have the Browns, but I mean it's a divisional game. These two teams don't like each other. I expect it to be close. I expect it to be gritty. And what it comes down to is while they have a lot of injuries, they're getting Nick Chubb back, so they really just need to try and run the ball. It's a difficult defense to do it against, but I think that they need to go to their identity, give him the rock, take some pressure off Case Keenum. And speaking of Case Keenum, I do think that his quarterback will be better than Ben Roethlisberger's. The only thing is he is going up against a better defense, but I still trust him more. Ben Roethlisberger is just such a fraud, man. He
He
can't
looked good in their last game, though.
He did. No, he did against Denver, ironically enough. He played fine last week. He's had his moments. I think Myles Garrett will be one of those X factors. I think he gets to him enough because he can't move at all. He's not mobile. I think Myles Garrett has a big day.
I'm going to take Cleveland as well, and I think that Myles Garrett matchup is going to be a difference maker because of how weak that Pittsburgh offensive line is. I'm going to go with the Browns because they're getting Nick Chubb back. They are now fully healthy at wide receiver with both Landry and OBJ out there. The offensive line is starting to get healthier. They should get Jack Conklin back, hopefully. And then the defense, I think they'll be able to create a lot of pressure up front. So give me the Browns in this one.
For Pat here, I feel like maybe the Browns, only because this isn't a game where I can think of something again. I don't know what it is this week. There's like no matchups that like scream Pat to me. Not yet, at least. We're not at that point. I'm going to say he takes the Browns.
This is so tough. I think he's going to – I think for the first time this year we're going to have a clean sweep.
Because I don't think he has any like fantasy players from either team, so I'll just stick with the Browns.
Yep. Next up, Philadelphia and Detroit.
I'm going to go with the Eagles here. They're 2-5. They haven't looked all that awful. Jalen Hurts, he's okay. He's all right. He'll do some good things for you. He can move out of the pocket. He can run, get you some yards, pick up some first downs. The Lions were playing Madden out there. That's what everybody was saying, and it was so accurate. It was so funny. The things, like the comparisons on like Twitter for that game against the Rams was really what made my Sunday. So I do appreciate what Dan Campbell's trying to do out there, but I just don't think they have enough talent, and not like the Eagles have a particularly large amount. They're 2-5 for a reason.
Yeah.
But I think the Eagles win.
I'm going to take the Eagles as well. Pat is going to take the Lions. This is such a Pat pick.
This is a Pat pick, so yeah, Lions for him.
Next up, Tennessee and Indianapolis.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. These are two teams that have won back-to-back. They both look good. The Colts are going to give them a run for their money. This is another good divisional matchup. This is a really pivotal game for them, I feel like. This is one that I'm not going to say they have to get, but it's at home. It's one of the two matchups with the Titans this year. They have to have this one. But while I do think that everything would indicate that they might be able to pull it out, I feel good about the Titans. This offense looks good. The defense is bad, but like they haven't looked terrible.
Look at last week.
Exactly. They haven't looked too bad. I thought that you guys were going to tear them apart. So
I did too, Parker. I really did too.
It's okay. Everybody did. So I think that they've been decent. They've had to go up against really good offenses back-to-back weeks. Colts offense is decent. I think that the Titans do enough with Derrick Henry to get it done.
I'm going to take the Titans too as well. I think that offense, that team is just clicking now. they're becoming that title contender
Yeah.
that
they're
we
living
had
up to it now.
really thought about in the offseason. So I'm going to take the Titans here.
I think Pat does too. He has
Pat?
Derrick Henry.
Yeah, that's exactly my reasoning.
Mhm.
Pat takes the Titans because of Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Next
The
up,
lock.
Bengals Jets. This is an easy one.
Yeah, this is the Bengals, and you know what? I'm gonna give them their flowers. Good for the Bengals. They looked really impressive this week. That was a game that we definitely could have been more in depth if we didn't have time for the NBA, but we want to allocate some time for that, so we can't, unfortunately. But I will just say though, good for the Bengals. The defense looks a lot better than I would have expected. Joe Burrow's throwing it around. Jamar Chase looks like a lock for Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I think that they've done a lot of things right, and that was a huge win against Baltimore on the road. So if they can do that against the Ravens, I would sure hope they can easily take care of business against the Jets.
This game is the easiest game all week. Give me the Bengals. I mean, have Pat taking the Bengals as well.
Oh, yeah, he'll take them for
Next
multiple
up.
reasons.
Next up, this is another easy one. Rams, Houston. Parker, it's obvious.
Yeah,
You're taking the Rams.
it's going to be the Rams here.
But does Pat
He goes with the Texans.
go with the Texans
He
and have his
does.
faith with Davis
He
Mills?
does. He's going to go with them. Yeah, we know this.
We know Pat. Just a tiny bit, people.
Yeah.
So, next up, okay, we already know Pat's taking. New
Yep.
England takes on the Chargers.
Yeah, so he's going to take the Patriots. That's a no-brainer. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the Chargers. They look really good. I mean, this was a team where going into the year, and I've said this I feel like every week, I knew that there was some talent. I just didn't think they were going to be able to stay healthy and
It's been that
execute.
defense that's made the difference.
They look so good. Herbert looks incredible. And I just think that the Patriots are a team that plays to the level of their opponents. So this could be a pretty close game for them, especially since the Chargers aren't a team that has any significant home field advantage because that doesn't really exist for them. We could see a lot of Patriots fans travel to that game. But I think that the Chargers are definitely the better team on both ends, and they'll get it done.
I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. I think that this team is playing very complete right now. That defense is playing much higher than their expectations, and Justin Herbert's playing really, really well right now. Next up, I know Pat is taking Jacksonville as they take on Seattle. So, Pat, we have you taking Jacksonville. Parker, I've got Seattle. I think Seattle's going to win this game. That defense really stepped up tonight and played well. And Geno Smith is not playing bad football. He's really not.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I'm going to take Seattle too. This is definitely one of those more winnable games considering the fact that he's playing and not Russ. So there's hope for the Jaguars, but I'm still going to go with the Seahawks at home. They had a tough loss against the Saints tonight. I think they bounce back. They take care of business at home.
I agree with you, Parker. Next up, Washington, Denver. In Denver. This is going to be a very tricky game here. Who do you have?
I don't like this. And look, so here's the thing. I'm going to pick Denver, but this is not a Denver bias. You can tell by my reaction, I don't like picking this game. I want nothing to do with it. Both teams don't look good. Both teams had higher expectations than they're managing to reach. So, personally, it could go either way. It's almost a coin flip for me. The only big factor is Denver's at home, so it seems like a little bit safer.
I'm going to go with Denver as well. And it's not because of Denver. It's because of how bad Washington has looked. I just don't trust them. So give me Denver in this one. Pat, we're trying to think for you here.
He'd go football team.
I think you're going to go football team.
Yeah, I feel like that's got Pat written all over it.
Yeah. Next up, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Parker, this is going to be an interesting game here. I think that this game could be potentially one of the better ones this week.
I don't know. I mean, sure, there's definitely a situation where maybe it is. Jameis would have to play at an extremely high level. Alvin Kamara would have to be all over the field. You know, the one thing with the Buccaneers that's been a little bit questionable has been their secondary. So that would
especially with how injured they've been.
Exactly, yeah. That's the reason. It's the injuries for them. But I think that this Tampa team still cruises. Again, it's another one of those divisional games. They're typically a little bit closer. Teams know how to game plan. They're familiar with teams. But I just think that Tampa gets the job done because this is a 4-2 Saints team that just doesn't feel like it. They're not playing like a 4-2 team. Ever since week 1, they haven't.
Yeah.
So Tampa going here.
I think all of us are going to take Tampa in this one. Pat's
Pat
going to take him because he loves Tom Brady. I just think this Tampa Bay offense is just cruising. This is such a dynamic offense, and I think they're going to continue to have such a big impact against a solid New Orleans defense. So give me the Buccaneers in this one. Next up, we're already at Sunday night. Dallas in Minnesota. Parker, who do you have?
I have Dallas here. They've looked really good. They're a legit Super Bowl contending team. I will say though, the Vikings are one of the better 3-3 teams. In fact, I mean, I'd have to look at a list.
I completely agree with you.
They could be the best 3-3 team. Like I said, I'd have to look at a list to know for sure to make that statement. But they have looked good. They're at home. The Vikings are no slouches. They're a team where Kirk Cousins is playing pretty well. Thielen's clicking. That offense looks good.
That offense has looked really good. It's mainly that defense.
Yeah, it comes down to the defense. They've lost some close games. I feel like
they should have beaten the Cardinals.
The Cowboys are probably going to give them a little too much because, yeah, like you mentioned, they gave the Cardinals run for their money. They could have easily not had a chance to be 7-0 had they take care of business week 1. So, well, I do expect it to be a close game. Could go very back and forth. I think Cowboys still get it.
I'm going to take the Cowboys in this one. I think it's going to be a very close game. I just think that when you're looking at this game, that offense of the Cowboys is just going to be so dominant against a struggling Minnesota defense. And I think Trevon Diggs has proven that he's just good for an interception every week. And I think that he's going to be able to shut down either Thielen or Jefferson. So I'm going to take Dallas in this one. I have Pat jotted down as Minnesota here.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mainly because Pat does like to make fun of Joe Biden and saying, Minnesota! So
yeah,
I'm going to give him Minnesota here.
Sure.
Last game of the week. Giants-Chiefs, Monday Night Football. Parker, who do you have?
I have the Chiefs winning this one. I think they go to 4-4 here. The Giants are coming off of a win. Jones made the second best or third best catch in Giants history, maybe fourth best catch. Because there's tons of them when you really think about it.
Yeah, there really is.
But I'm joking, of course. There could be way more than that. Just for comedic purposes, because that was a great catch by Daniel Jones. I mean, who would have thought that he had that in him?
Yeah, that was a heck of a catch by him. I was shocked when I saw that.
But, all jokes aside, though, the Giants' defense has been pretty good this year. I just think that the Chiefs' offense is going to do too much. And again, I don't expect the Giants to have too much success on the offensive side. Yes, they're going up against
they're going to have some success.
They'll have more than,
they should.
Usual, but I don't think that's going to be enough because pretty much the way I look at it is the Chiefs' defense is struggling. Giants' offense will do a little bit better. They'll be slightly above average, but the Chiefs' offense, while going up against a better defense, will have more success. So I think that the Chiefs' offense wins the game.
I'm not going to lie to you, Parker. It would not shock me if the Giants win Arrowhead. No, is this game in Arrowhead?
It is,
yeah. That's what I thought. It wouldn't shock me if they win the Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs, but I'm going to take the Chiefs. Something has got to click at some point, and if the Chiefs want to try to make some adjustments, this is the perfect game to do it. So give me the Chiefs in this one.
And we know Pat would go with the Giants here.
I mean,
he doesn't like the Giants because of Super Bowl reasons, of course.
But he hates me, so.
But just to poke fun, he would take the Giants, yeah.
All right, that's going to conclude our NFL talk. We've still got about a good 20 minutes or so with everyone. So let's get into the NBA. And we have seen a great start to this season. But, Parker, during the offseason, we had a huge rule change.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
With the shot fake, bump, foul shot. And that's a horrible way to describe it. But
yeah, I was going to say.
I got the point across.
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe I could do a little better.
Yeah,
so the rule is what we see is players like James Harden. Steph Curry is one of them, but he doesn't rely on it the same way. Pretty much the poster child is James Harden for this. And it's
100%.
It's the shot fake, and you jump into the defender as the shooter to initiate contact. So it's the offensive player initiating contact, which is a no-no nowadays. They changed that. We saw it in the preseason, and I absolutely love it. It is so awesome to see that guys can't just try and get fouled. I mean, it's literally one of my huge pet peeves with James Harden, ASU alumni, all that. I respect his game. He's one of the best players we've seen, but I hate his playing style. I think it's bad for the game of basketball. A lot of people say that with Steph Curry and three-pointers. That I disagree with. That's just him being godly at scoring and hitting threes. But why I think James Harden.
A little bit of Warriors bias, maybe.
I promise I'm not the kind of biased person. So,
maybe a little? Maybe a tiny bit?
Not really. I mean, like maybe sometimes, but not for that take, I don't think. I don't think there's bias for that because and this isn't supposed to be about the Steph Curry changing the game thing, but I don't think what he did is wrong. That if kids want to
It's just an evolution.
emulate their game, yeah, the game's just changed. I mean, look at like in the '60s.
Yeah.
You win with a dominant center. That has slowly changed over time. It's not just Steph, but he's probably the biggest guy to change the game with what he's done. But the thing I didn't like, back to the topic, is James Harden goes about his game to get fouled. He's not trying to score. That's literally the secondary effect. He's trying to get fouled, and if he can score, awesome. That's just a bonus, and
He'll
that's
drop
not how it's
40.
supposed to be.
He'll drop 40, but 25 of those points will come from the free throw line while shooting like 5 of 25 from the field.
Yeah, and look, he's averaging I think like 16 points right now.
Yeah.
Which I could be wrong on that number. I'm pretty
It's
sure
low for Harden.
it's right in that range,
Yeah.
and it makes a ton of sense. I mean, you take away the guy's free throws. Maybe he's only getting a couple a game. I don't know the exact number for how many he's getting currently after 3 games, but that number is shot down dramatically. And I just think that actually 4 games now. They played another game tonight, I'm pretty sure. That's a guy where he relies on getting fouled and getting his free throws. And there's nothing wrong with getting to the line. Like, look, if you get fouled, you get fouled. But he was a guy that was exploiting the NBA rules. That's what he was doing. And, that's smart. It's high basketball IQ to be able to find an issue with the league's rules and be able to benefit from it, I should say. But I never liked it, and I'm just really glad the NBA made this change because a lot of people come at me and they're like, well, you're a Warriors fan, and Steph does that. And I'm like, you're not wrong. He does that. He doesn't get it called at the same rate that James Harden does. Nobody does. But, yeah, sure. He's going to do what it takes to get foul calls if he can. I mean, guys are already hacking at Steph left and right. And I'm a believer that there's a lot of times where he takes more contact than any guard in the league, and he still doesn't get calls. So if he can get a 3-point shot where he's getting fouled because he jumps into a defender every once in a while, you can't blame the guy. But I do think it is a good rule change. It was funny because in the preseason, I don't remember what announcer it was. Maybe you do. If you don't, who cares? Maybe somebody out there does. But they were saying in a game where Steph tried it, and I don't think it was the Warriors broadcast, but if it was, then it would have been maybe Kellena, or maybe it would have been Bob Fitzgerald. Not too sure. It could have been a national broadcast too, but that's not the point. The point is they said, nope, not this year. You're not getting away with that. And I just think it's great because the game's evolving. That's something that the league had to do because every sport naturally these days gravitates towards offense and scoring. And, that's fine. Look, people find it more exciting. The game is geared towards the more casual fan. I get that, but this was something that needed to be changed, and we're seeing it. His numbers are reflective of it, and the way I look at it is he is going to adjust at some point, and he's going to get back to scoring. His numbers are going to go up, but as of right now, though, not looking too hot for Mr. Harden.
Parker, I'm going to lead off with, in the 4 games, he's averaging 3 free throw attempts.
Isn't that something?
Career low.
Just a round of applause. That's awesome.
And, I think the best part about it is that it is being very well officiated.
Yeah, I think it's been consistent. That's the beauty of it. I haven't seen too many instances where it's like, oh, they kind of went back to their roots and made the call. They shouldn't have done that. Like, I think it's consistent with every player because typically it's the point guards that are trying to get away with their shooting guards. These are the guys that were known for doing it. They're not giving it to them anymore. And I think that it's not just one guy not getting the call. There's no bias. It's league round, and I think it's awesome. And it's good, though, because, it helps the defenders because it's already so hard to guard these guys. They don't need to have these extra rules on their side, too. They already got so much going for them.
Here's the thing with Harden. This year, he has gone to the free throw line 12 times. How many turnovers has he committed, Parker?
I'm sure he's committed quite a bit because – even if it's not turnovers, so you'll have to say the number. I'm not even going to take a guess.
19 turnovers.
That doesn't shock me that much. But what I will say is, even if it's not officially a turnover on the stat sheet, I'm sure there's been plenty of times, and I haven't watched enough Nets games to really know or at least watch them from start to finish.
The past 2 games, he shot 3 of 16 from 3.
But if I had to guess, there's been instances where he's trying to do it.
Yeah.
He bricks it terribly and is looking for a call, and they're like, nope. And then the team's going back on transition defense because he thinks he can still do it and he can't. Yeah. I could be wrong on that.
That era's over, and I think he's going to have
sense.
to adjust very quickly. Otherwise, it's going to be a long adjustment period for him. But I think this is a great rule that they initiated and put in, and it's being officiated very well.
And the beauty is it's universally loved.
Yes.
Like I haven't found a single person that's against
Because
it.
it's the most frustrating foul call in the game. So getting rid of it, I think, was genius.
Yeah.
And it's been very consistent, which I think makes it a lot easier, which makes it a
Yeah.
lot better. Parker, the Lakers. I want to switch over to the Lakers.
Like
This
Joe.
team, widely considered as the title favorite, they've been struggling. What do you think is the reason they've been struggling so heavily to start this season?
So look, I'm not gonna be like, like acting like a genius where it's like, I knew this was gonna be the demise, because one, it's too early in the season to be making bold statements like that. And two, just because I was a believer that they don't have the right spacing. That is a really big thing in today's NBA game. Part of, Curry changing the game is you have to be able to space out the floor with shooters. I think that the reason why they had trouble with the Suns in the first round, a lot of it was injuries. I think that was the biggest thing. But the second biggest thing was the Suns were able to space the floor. Every guy on the court besides Aiden could shoot threes. You had Bridges, you had Booker, you had CP3, you had Crowder. Everybody could shoot. And the Lakers that year, they didn't have spacing the way that the Suns did. So they weren't able to do that. They weren't able to hit threes at a high rate. And what they did this offseason is they brought in more older guys. There's all these retirement home jokes, which, they're kind of funny at first, then they get old, no pun intended. But look at me go. And
You're a clever one.
and not only that, but they brought in Westbrook. And Westbrook's a good player. But what we know about him is while he can fill up the stat sheet, some would say stat pad, he is very inefficient. He's going to miss a lot of shots. His mid-range game's not very good. He can't hit three balls to save his life, and he turns over the ball a lot. We saw that in preseason. Reporters were asking him, "Oh, you're worried about turnovers?" Like preseason. It's like, you're not wrong, Russ. It is preseason, but that's still an issue because that's always been a concern for your game throughout your career.
Yeah, he turns the ball over a lot.
We're seeing that with this Lakers team. And look, this team has LeBron. They have AD, and like I said, Russ. They're a good team. They're going to be able to do a lot of things really well. They're really dominant in the paint. That's something with AD that's just a nightmare for teams. I know when they played the Warriors in the home opener, he was a problem. He looked really good.
LeBron and AD were problems, and they still fell.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. The turnaround from the playing game, AD was non-existent. And then he comes opening night with a chip on his shoulder, and man, did he look good.
He looked good, and yet they still lost. And here's the thing. They have done a great job of getting guys around and developing a very deep roster. But they don't have a lot of shooters. They have Melo, who went 6 of 8 from 3 last night and got them their first win of the year. But also, they've got Malik Monk and Austin Reeves, but that's it.
Yeah.
They don't have a true bona fide shooter that they can go to consistently. And I think that is the biggest issue. And that's why they wanted to get Bradley Beal over Russell Westbrook. They weren't able to get him.
Yeah,
so
and not only that,
and get it.
they wanted Buddy Hield too.
Yes.
That trade was so close. And we don't know the exact
And
reason
I
why it
think
didn't
that
go
trade
through.
would have made a huge difference in getting a bona fide shooter.
I think that would have benefited the Lakers significantly more. Because when I remember I was on my break, and I saw that notification, and I was like, oh gosh, because that's going to be tough for the Warriors to handle if the Lakers get a good shooter. Because Buddy Hield's he's projected to have some good numbers this year. He's always been a good shooter, and coming out of Kansas at Oklahoma. He's that guy, He's been awesome for the Kings, and he's going to continue to be because he's still going to have to play for them because they didn't make the move. I mean, I was shocked because that's a guy that's going to help space the floor. He's going to do wonders for the offense. Because LeBron, he's the general. He's the one with the ball in his hand. He's facilitating, kicking it out to a guy like Buddy, cash.
I also think that's a huge issue, is that there's a potential rift between LeBron and Westbrook.
Yeah.
Who's the real floor general?
Yeah, which it's just like, look, Westbrook's a great player. Like, they have so much stardom. Like, they have so much talent.
They really do.
But they just don't know what to do with it.
They got to piece it together.
Exactly.
And I think that's their biggest thing is chemistry-wise. And you got to get some guys who can take a backseat. Like, you need Russ to take a backseat to LeBron being that floor general.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's going to come.
Yeah.
So I think that's a real worry for Vogel and the Lakers as well.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for Lakers fans, Kendrick Nunn's still hurt, so he'll come back and he'll be able to shoot for them. But, I mean, that's about it. I think they're going to definitely make some moves at the deadline. We always see the memes that LeBron's trying to get rid of teammates left and right. We could see that because I think that this team is not built to be able to win they're just built like an old team. Like this feels like an early 2000s team. Like this doesn't
When
feel like
shooting wasn't really a big thing.
yeah.
And
It's
here's
just
the thing: that's nothing against them. That's not calling them old. It's
Mhm.
that they're trying to go through that old brand of basketball,
won't
and
work.
that old brand's gone.
Might as well pick
Yeah.
up Ben Simmons if
It's-
that's what you want to do.
It's gone.
'cause-
That old brand is gone. You need to have shooters that'll help you space the floor
Yeah,
and really make your team dynamic.
yeah,
It's really they're proven to be one dimensional. They're going to power you down low and in the
Mhm.
paint, but they don't have someone that they can kick out to consistently.
yeah.
So
I mean,
that's their biggest thing. And if I'm the Lakers, you're definitely going to look to add a shooter at the trade deadline.
yeah. I mean, that was why the Warriors were able to beat the Lakers because the Warriors have so many guys that can come off the bench and they can shoot. There's Bielitsa, there's Anderson, obviously there's Steph. That's a no-brainer. Jordan
When Klay
Poole
comes
can
back.
shoot. Clay's gonna come back. Like that's a team with so many guys that can space the floor. They can shoot. Even
And,
Wiggins can shoot.
and that's the reason why the Warriors are one of the best spacing teams
Mhm.
in the entire league because they've got some guys that can hit mid range and drive to the hoop like Wiggins. When Wiseman comes
Mhm.
back, they have him. They have Draymond Green who does a great job spacing the floor. Their attack with their shooters is really what sets them apart and makes them so dangerous. And that's where the Lakers lack.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, they're a team where so many guys you put out there on the floor. They can drive to the hoop, get some penetration, kick it out in the corner, and you can trust that one of those guys is going to hit it. There's so many guys for this team. I mean, almost all of them, with the exception of like Kevon Looney, because even James Wiseman, he's no slouch for a center. For a center, that is. Different
Yeah.
standards for a center doing
Yeah.
threes than like Steph,
And he can stretch the floor really well, which
Mhm.
also improves their spacing even more.
which is something that, when you start DeAndre Jordan, which I thought was kind of funny, starting an old DeAndre Jordan who can't shoot whatsoever, how are you going to space the floor? Because I mean, this is a team where personally, if I'm Frank Vogel, I'm going to make Anthony Davis the center. They did that a lot last year.
Yeah, they did.
I make him the center. I mean, they got Drummond and then he was the center.
So
And
are they
that's-
going to put LeBron at the 4 then? If you're Vogel, you put LeBron at the 4.
So I would put AD at the 5. I
Okay.
would probably put LeBron at the 4. You could put him there.
Melo 3.
Yeah, honestly, I would. And Melo wants that role. He's ready for it. He's had that for most of his career. That was one of the biggest issues with him taking a step back
Yeah.
the last couple of years.
Is that he was never a guy who came off the bench.
Yeah, and
So-
he's willing to do that, and up to him finally doing that. But I
It's
do
really
think his shooting would be a value.
yeah, that's what saved his career was his ability to take that step back. The Lakers need guys like Melo who are willing to do that.
Yeah. So I think that just to finish off the 5, I think you do put Melo at 3 because he can space the floor.
Monk at the 2,
Either
or because I
well,
know they've been going with Kent Bazemore, and I know
I
you are
would
not,
not
a
do
Kent
that.
Bazemore fan.
Look, it was miserable watching that man jack up shots that he's not capable of shooting. So I would put Russ at the 1, and then at the 2, it would be between Kendrick Nunn and then Malik Monk. It's a toss-up. You can go either one, and this is of course in a reality where Kendrick's
Yeah.
healthy and able to play,
Yes,
which he's not yet. But that's what I would do because for a big man, AD can somewhat shoot. His numbers weren't very good last year. I think he shot below 30% from 3. I think that he'll probably be better if you have to have him take more shots like that. He can do it. He's capable of it. But I would really emphasize the fact that you need to have at least 2 shooters on the court, which
Yeah.
would, in this case would be Melo and Nunn or Monk.
Parker, we have 2 minutes left. I want to ask you real quick, which team has shocked you the most so far, and which teams has really come out the gate hot that you can say that you think will continue this success?
One of the teams that I do think is the Bulls. They're
Yeah.
a team that I like. They're 4-0 for the first time since 1966, which I thought was such an interesting stat because with all those MJ-led teams, you
Yeah.
would have thought that they at least once done that, but I guess not. Stats don't lie. But I think they're a good young team. I like the core. I like who they brought in with DeRozan. They brought in Vooch at the deadline last year. There's a lot to like with this team. A lot of people are trying to discredit them. I realize their schedule hasn't been particularly tough, but you just play what you've been given in front of you, and they're doing that. They're 4-0. I like them a lot. They're the 4 seed in the East for me, and there's some really good teams. That's another thing I just want to add. The Eastern Conference is really good from top to bottom, so it's gonna be tough sledding. But I do like the Bulls, and I think that they can make some noise in the playoffs.
Okay, the one team I want to talk about, the Hornets. This team, when you look at the roster, you're not like, oh, wow, or anything like that. What you're seeing is Miles Bridges is playing very well to start the season. LaMelo Ball is doing it all like you anticipated. And then you look at a lot of their other guys, they still have a lot of talent there. They're a young team, but I think that their ability to really space the floor and use that talent that they have is really crucial. And I think that's what's going to be able to lead them to be that top tier team and getting into the playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of the 4-3 show. We were really bareback tonight, like just us two here. Next week, the full gang should be here, and we are excited to be back at full strength next week. Have a great rest of your week. We will be back next Monday here on BlazeRadioOnline.com.